Hello, everybody in Houday Nation. Welcome to Men in Stripes, brought to you by StripePipe.com, a fan-sided Bengals network site. Really excited for episode 4 of Men in Stripes, 5 technically, but we'll get to there at some point. Really stoked for today's show. Tim Dandu here as always. Check us out on Twitter at StripePipe. Also joined by co-editor of StripePipe.com and our excellent guy that joins us on the show every week, Mr. Matthew Wilson. Matthew, thanks again. How are we doing out there?
Doing good, Tim. How about you?
I am fantastic, man. It is post-combine and pre-free agency, which means we're so much closer to OTAs, which means we're so much closer to Andy Dalton throwing the football again.
Absolutely. It's exciting to get him back.
It is. So, a whole lot to talk about this week. We're going to review the combine, give our thoughts on our winners and losers from the combine and what we thought there. We're going to potentially look at some of the prospects we discussed last week and how they had in their combine. We're going to talk about, what else? Free agency. It's a big deal. Who's going where? What's the rumors? What we're hearing? Tell you what articles you should check out on the website this week as always. But let's get right into it with the most important topic in Bengal Dome this week. Matthew, Vontaze Burfict has an interview on ESPN with Josina Anderson discussing his style of play. Is he a dirty player? How does he feel he needs a change in the game? What his thoughts are from the playoff game. You wrote a very good reactive article to this, where there are some articles out there, including on our own site, of people saying that Vontaze threw Jeremy Hill under the bus when he said he expected his teammates to come through after the job he did. You say that you don't feel that was a going under the bus thing, so please, man. It's obviously it's a two-sides argument. What are your thoughts there, and what made you feel that he wasn't throwing his team under the bus?
First off, I'll defend Matt on this one because Matt wrote a great reactionary article to the article on CBS Sports, and that's kind of what spawned me to actually really watch the interview. And so, two different total sides there. He's taking it from the article standpoint. I'm taking it from the full interview standpoint. So I'll defend Matt there first and foremost on his article about him kind of edging a teammate under the bus there. My standpoint there, if you watch the full interview from ESPN with Jillian Anderson, and she actually posted it to Facebook on her Facebook page. So like her Facebook page, watch the whole thing if you get a chance to. But one of the big things that we saw with Vontaze in the whole interview itself was the fact that he came out and she consistently asked, she asked a number of questions that had to do with putting blame on people for the loss. And she asked him, do you blame yourself? In which he said no. Everybody took that immediately as, oh, well, he's going to blame somebody else, especially with what he says later in the interview. And that's not true. If you actually listen to the next question she asked, which is, what do you feel is your part in the loss? What do you think your part was that affected the Bengals to lose that game? And he said, the hit. So he knows his role. He knows what he did, and he knows what the cause aspect of it. It wasn't that he was saying that he didn't have a part in it. It wasn't saying that he didn't have anything to do with the fact that the Bengals lost. He said the hit. He knew the hit was something that affected the Bengals in a negative way, and it caused kind of the whole reaction that ended up eventually losing the Bengals game. So he understands his role. He understands what happened there, and he doesn't blame himself, and rightfully so. He should have moved on from that by now, to the fact that he's not blaming himself for it. Going on to where he goes and says, about coach says that you've got to trust your teammates with your parachute. I trusted my teammate, and he let me down. There was a bunch of people that could say the exact same thing. It was asked of Vontaze because he did the interview. Now, we're speculating, of course, that means Jeremy Hill. We don't know 100% because he never actually said the teammate's name.
But to be fair
first
there,
and foremost.
As he's saying that in that interview thing, and I think this is where people get that idea. This is the media painting this picture, because, God, us in the media, we suck, obviously.
Absolutely.
They're showing the clip of Jeremy Hill fumbling in that clip as he's discussing, saying, I trusted my team to carry my to see, and they didn't do the job. So I think that's ESPN turning to say Vontaze Burfict is blaming Jeremy Hill, which I agree with you. He in no way said that was the case.
I mean, for all we know, Adam Jones got a penalty against him for pushing Joey Porter, in which he came out and said that supposedly Joey Porter had came up to him on the field and said how he supposedly respected his play. And if that's true, good for Joey Porter. He still had no business being on the field, first and foremost. Let's make that evident. But at the same time, there was two people that affected that play. When Adam Jones pushed Joey Porter, a flag was thrown on Adam Jones. At that point in time, if I remember correctly, it was still going to be about a 52-yard field goal, which is not a chip shot. No. Especially for a first-year, never played in the NFL kicker in a playoff position. And so, there's two people that very well could have been meant for that statement. We don't know. We suggest that it's Jeremy Hill because, as you said, number one, he intercepted the ball. If Jeremy Hill holds on to that ball, if they kick a field goal, now the Steelers have to go down with a little less time on the clock, no timeouts, and score a touchdown. And so it lines up perfectly with Jeremy Hill. But there are multiple offenders in this. And Vontaze being one, too. Vontaze himself, in which I don't think the hit was... I still hold on the side. I don't think the hit was fully intentional to go to the head.
I don't either.
And he walked it through. He walked through the play. And you can see in the interview him walking through the play. And you can see at that aspect where he does try to pull in, and Antonio Brown's head goes down. And in that aspect, my whole statement to the NFL is, what do you want a player to do there? Do you want him to stop? Because I promise you, he's not going to be able to stop. You want him to go low? Okay, now he tears another ACL, and now you have a whole other issue. Another player with an ACL tear. And so it's a double-edged sword in the NFL, and that's why I jokingly say, eventually we're going to get, the NFL is going to be either a flag football or two-hand touch.
Yeah, and I think the perfect point you make, too, and this is the point I make and why I don't agree with the hit and the circumstances of the hit, is Brown's momentum, his head brings him down. Not saying Antonio Brown intentionally ducked his head in any way, shape, or form, obviously, because I don't think anyone wants to duck their head when Vontaze Burfict's coming right at them. But I certainly agree with where Vontaze going. He's like, what do they want us to do there? Really interesting because he touched on everything. I mean, she asked him everything. She asked about his meeting with Roger Goodell, what they talked about, how when he got off the plane, he already knew he was suspended. And I'll be the first to say that I think Roger Goodell is a wuss bag. I don't really respect what he's done with the NFL, and I'm kind of 100% with James Harrison in that circumstance, that I think that he has really hurt the game. I mean, we're talking about a guy that blatantly avoided Congress with concussions. So, yeah, I mean, I totally understand where, everything went there. But, you could obviously see Vontaze being a professional there and saying, like, he talked to me about changing how I play and, buying in. And he said there was, and he mentioned, we hadn't heard about the warnings.
No.
So, yeah, I thought that was a really, really good interview. Show a good side of Vontaze. Because he's not this villain that everyone paints him out to be, this guy that people are saying, like, that's someone's husband out there he's hitting, or he needs to be off the field, he needs to be banned for life because he's a dirty football player. It's like, first off, when Steeler fans tell me Vontaze Burfict's a dirty football player, I'm like, you guys realize you have Mike Mitchell, right? Like, come on.
Well, and don't forget Ryan Shazier.
And also don't forget, 15 years of James Harrison? And I love James Harrison. I will never shy away from being a James Harrison fan.
Oh, absolutely. He played the game the way the game was supposed to be played.
Right. So, we have the dirty guy, but I remember Mike Mitchell standing over Tyler Eifert after he hit him in the helmet and posing as Tyler Eifert suffering from a concussion. But yeah, you're right. Vontaze Burfict's a dirtier player.
And this is where I think, and every fan base is going to be hypocritical to some standpoint.
Sure.
It all has to do with favoritism, everything that way. But, I mean, plain and simple. And the other thing that bothered me about that interview is him talking about him stepping off the plane Wednesday for a Thursday meeting, and they had already heard the appeal, supposedly.
Right.
And it's like, wait, hold on. That's not the definition of an appeal here. And my whole thing is, why is the NFLPA, and yes, this is kind of for Eric Winston, why is the NFLPA sitting on its butt?
Yeah.
Because if he never talked before a judgment was made on an appeal, if they never talked to the player and got the player's point of view, that's not an appeal.
Yeah, it's not. It's not the right to defend yourself, and that's crap. Because it goes back to, and I fully agree with this. I think, Vontaze Burfict's reputation spoke for Vontaze Burfict in this circumstance, and that's not fair.
No, and that's what's funny about this is that never once have we had Vontaze Burfict really give his side.
No.
And now he has, and we find out that in all of this, the NFL and the NFLPA have failed the players, in which the NFLPA had failed the players once before, but that is their rep that failed the NFLPA. Now we have the president of the NFLPA, who happens to also be a Bengals player, or was a Bengals player.
Right.
He's a free agent, who is not defended in any way, shape, or form. Basically, his teammate.
Right. At least he was his teammate that night.
He was. He was his teammate that night. He's been his teammate for the past 2 seasons.
And we talked about this a couple weeks ago on the show. We said, you said that you thought the suspension would get lowered because Eric Winston would have his back.
And he hasn't. And that is one thing that makes me think Eric Winston needs to step down as president of the NFLPA, and somebody else who has a backbone, who isn't going to be scared off by Roger Goodell, needs to step up into its place.
Yeah, I'm with you. Roger Goodell's a wuss bag.
So is Eric Winston at this point. I'm sorry. I'll say it. Eric Winston is the same way if he's going to let this go.
Yeah. But hey, it's all right because some guy out there is going to do something horrible and be able to play all year next year, but Vontaze Burfict's going to miss 3 games. But hey, that's neither here nor there. Let's talk about happier things.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about the Combine, man. Let's talk about these kids that we've been talking about for a few weeks now that we've said we've just lined up to the Bengals. Just thought we're just so many good players. We've talked so much about this wide receiver group and all these guys. And if you remember, I called it back when I first started with Stripe Pipe. I think the second article I wrote, you and I had this discussion before on air. Will Fuller, he played himself back into the first round this Combine, man. Obviously, we knew about the speed. I mean, I covered Notre Dame football. Obviously, I knew about the speed, so maybe that's a little unfair for me to talk about, for my other job. Yeah. I mean, he's a guy that, people were questioning his route running, people were questioning his hands, and they should, because I've admitted, too, that his hands are a little streaky. Yeah. But route running, I never understood, because I've seen that kid. I've been on the sidelines and watched that kid take a 6-yard play and turn to a 60-yard play, because he's just outstanding. But, his interviews were great as expected, just like when I interviewed the kid. And then now after that Combine, and you're seeing everything, where people were talking about this guy being a late second-rounder. They're like, the Bengals are going to go with Braxton Miller. The Bengals are going to go with Josh Doxson. No, they're going to go with Corey Coleman. You're seeing Bucky Brooks. You're seeing Mel Kiper. You're seeing a lot of guys talking about Will Fuller at number 24 to the Cincinnati Bengals, which, hey, I don't know if you're aware, Marvin Jones and Mohamed Sanu are free agents. Did you know that? I don't think we've discussed that at all.
Yeah, I don't think we have either.
Is there a better fill-in for losing Marvin Jones than Will Fuller?
Value-wise, I'm saying yes, but that's just because I think Malcolm Mitchell has the potential to be A.J. Green.
I like Malcolm Mitchell a lot, too.
In terms of overall first-rounders, I've just got to ask, what possessed the kid for a 4.31 40?
I don't know.
Because I'm watching the wide receivers run the 40, and Fuller comes up. I'm like, all right, he's got some good speed. We'll probably see a right around a 4.339, something like that, sub 4.4, but not too much. And all of a sudden he hits 4.31, and I'm going, okay. I'm gonna eat my words. I know I am.
See, dude, here's the thing. I covered Will Fuller all 3 years he was at Notre Dame. So I've been in the press box. I've been standing next to the kid, and I've talked to the kid. Where I have that luxury. I'm really fortunate there, obviously.
Absolutely.
I've seen this kid do amazing things, man. And yeah, the drops do certainly worry me. They should worry anyone. But you've followed college football. You're familiar with Adoree Jackson, the USC corner. He's really good. He's really fast. I watched Will Fuller burn him by 10 yards. It's unbelievable. It's not fair. He's going to take a top off any secondary. There's no safety that's going to be able to get him without making an illegal hit or grabbing him from getting away. If you take this thing, say you sign Marvin Jones back. Awesome. Terrific. I'm happy. Everyone's happy. And you put Will Fuller there right next to Marvin Jones, and you have Tyler Eifert and A.J. Green on the other side. Who the hell do you cover? What fast corners do you have that can go out there and go against these guys in man-to-man?
Unless you're the Steelers, because, of course, then Mitchell's just going to take their heads off, and now he only has one guy to cover. So...
Yeah, but he can't.
I had to throw that in there.
Dude, look at since Mike Mitchell's been a Steeler. Look at every touchdown that's been scored on that AJ Green has scored. It's always Mike Mitchell falling to the ground or being the one that's stuck covering him.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, going back to that there. So, and we'll talk. I mean, that's part of the plan. There is. I'll talk about this later in the show too. Obviously, free agents going to shake things up. As we know. And we know about Jones. We know about Sanu. We talked last week about losing Brandon Tate, what Mario Alford could bring this team. Matthew Pedroza from Stripe Pipe wrote a really good article this week about potential guys that could fill in those spots. He even mentioned Jay Kumaro, who was on the practice squad this year. A lot of people loved and almost made the team out of preseason last year. I think that what we saw from these wide receivers that keep being linked to the Bengals, the Josh Doxsons, the Corey Colemans, the Will Fullers, you have to be happy if the Bengals do get one of them. Now, we know that the draft is so unpredictable. There's a good chance the Bengals I feel like they're going to take a receiver. I honestly do with that 24th pick, just because of what's going to happen. And for the love of God, do the Bengals really need to go reach and get many more guys? Okay, if they lose Reggie Nelson and they lose George Aloka, if they somehow lose both, you have Sean Williams and Darren Smith. Pretty solid 2 guys to have there. If you lose Adam Jones and you lose Leon Hall, you're going to lose Leon Hall, okay, that's fine. You have Josh Shaw and Darquez Dennard. 2 really solid guys there. Those are your big questions. If you lose Vinny Ray, okay, you have P.J. Dawson there. If you lose Marvin Jones or Mohamed Sanu, there's not okay, this guy steps up there. That's why I think, you have to pay attention to 3 or 4 guys, and I think that all 3 guys really showed you things in the combine to make you say, I hope that guy plays on my team.
Yeah, no, it's hard to deny that the Bengals at some point in time in the draft will have to take a wide receiver. Obviously, what happens in the next 2 weeks, we'll say, is going to shape kind of how the draft will start to unfold, or at least how the plan for the draft will start to unfold. And so, Will Fuller is a great guy, to the fact that I think he fills a speed need, obviously, for this team. I mean, A.J. Green is quick, but he more reminds me of kind of like a Megatron. He can win most jump balls. He's quick, but he's not going to outrun your corners at least half the time. But he will outjump your corners 90% of the time. And so somebody with like Will Fuller who has a little bit more speed, and I think that's something that, Braxton's a little better, obviously, than even Corey Coleman. Corey Coleman, I think, finished third of those three. But and that's if Coleman even ran the 40. I don't even know if Coleman ran the 40.
I don't remember.
I don't think he did. I think he did bench, and I think he did maybe a couple cones, but I don't think he ran the 40. Now thinking about it.
Did you see the report where the Bengals, when they interviewed him, asked him who won, some of the one war the U.S. won, and he didn't know the answer?
Well, we never asked them to be intelligent off the field.
Whoa,
we just asked them to have intelligence on the field.
I thought that was pretty funny.
Oh yeah, that was one that just kind of sits there and goes, "Where'd you go to school again? Do they have an academic program?"
Hey, unlike Will Fuller, who went to a beautiful, wonderful university.
Yeah, but so did a couple of players who went to a school called Stanford.
Oh, yeah. I'm well aware.
So yeah, I mean, schools definitely have academic programs. We're just questioning the one that Corey Coleman went to.
Yeah.
If you're going to the same school as Corey Coleman, you might want to ask for a refund, because obviously they're missing something in the academics there.
But yeah, so I think as far as that wide receiver group, we saw a lot of good there.
Yeah.
Talk about some other targets there. I mean, not, I guess I shouldn't say targets, but people that are kind of, everyone had their eye on. First off, I thought Carson Wentz did a great job in his combine. I think he showed a lot. Apparently, we should really worry about his hands, as far as gripping the ball. Apparently, that matters for what we hear. Okay. Jared Goff, obviously, those two battling to solidify, who's the number one quarterback in the draft. People walked away very happy with their performances. I think the true winner in the draft, as far as, we knew he was a first-round pick, and this is where your collegeness comes in because of the teams you follow and cover. I think Ezekiel Elliott really was the winner of the draft. He's probably, before this draft, they're probably thinking he's going to Houston, he's going to replace Arian Foster, he's that 22nd pick. Now, he might be not getting past Indianapolis. I don't see him getting it. I mean, he might have played his way into the top 15. It might have made himself about $6-7 more million on the signing bonus.
He may have even played his way up to the New York Giants, because there was early talks of them possibly taking him, but then all of a sudden he had dropped down, and there was concerns about the whole offensive group in this draft, and so we saw him drop further and further. But he may have even played his way back up there, because of course Giants need a little bit of help on the running game. They didn't do so hot, and they need something to take the pressure off of Eli Manning, because Eli's getting eaten alive in that backfield.
Yeah, he is. You feel for him, man. You do.
I like the guy to a point until we play them next year.
Yeah.
Because I think we actually play both games in the Meadowlands, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So, essentially, they'll know the Meadowlands at least by the second game, whoever they end up playing second. But, no, I mean, Zeke is on another level. I think the person who's hurting the worst, and you follow the news on this guy, and so you know more than I do, obviously. But the news that Jalen Smith has nerve damage that could cause not only him to be out during the 16 year, but then also maybe further. Now I saw the Twitter footage of him walking without a brace after being pretty much down and out for 6 weeks, which is a good sign. But the fact that there's not only structural damage but nerve damage, that's got to cause some concern.
It does, man. That sucks because he's so good. Before that injury, he's a top 3 draft pick. Maybe, and he's so talented. And I saw today, weirdly enough, Kuiper still has him in the first round.
There are a couple teams that are still rumored to be looking at him and possibly willing to take a chance, but He supposedly has dropped down to at least 3 or 4 subboards, pending his physical before the draft in August or in April.
Did you see? He had that cash out because of his injury, where if he drops to the 3rd round, he still somehow gains $6 million or something like that. It's man, I want that guy's agent.
I know, right?
Yeah. So
I want to know how Notre Dame's getting all this money to pay, because that's got to be some type of agreement there for something.
Yeah, actually they do. Because Demetrius Jackson on the basketball team had an injury too, and he got a deal with it too. It's not a violation, if I remember, the way Brian Kelly explained it one time, and I heard it, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, that's too smart for me."
Before the agreement happened, supposedly he was already planning on, or he was already supposedly filed for the draft, which means at that point he can contact an agent, and then there's a deal that is worked out under the agent. With the school. It's something ridiculously weird. I heard the same thing from Brian Kelly, and I kind of sat there and went, yeah, that just still sounds very suspicious, but the NCAA is going to say, hey, one less lawsuit against us, yay.
Right, yeah.
So, but no, I feel for the guy, because that's one that, I was interested in watching to see what he possibly can do, and now to hear that he might be done before, obviously it's worst case scenario, but he might be done before he even starts. But obviously be done for 16 and possibly part of 17 is definitely a downer.
I still don't think it's the case. I do think he will play in 2016, only because one, that kid is the most ridiculous athlete I've seen besides in person, besides maybe Adrian Peterson. I've seen him do some things where you're like, how the hell do you do that? 2, there is no one I've ever seen in my life more determined than Jalen Smith on a football field, or to be healthy and to take care of themselves. Yeah, that includes being around Manti Te'o.
Yep. By the way, how's his girlfriend doing?
I don't know.
I thought she was still floating around campus.
Nice. Yeah, that doesn't get old.
You brought it up.
I did not. You brought up the girlfriend.
No, you brought up Manti Te'o.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair. And his NFL career has been substantially awesome, hasn't it? Not. Yeah, so, it's certainly the case there. So I definitely feel for him there. I do think he's the biggest loser, too, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But, yeah, just the Combine's great, man. I really enjoyed this year seeing those guys. Keith Marshall from Georgia running a 4.29. Whew.
So he's going to return kicks for what team?
Probably the Patriots.
Okay.
Yeah, the Patriots will find a way to make him a slot wide receiver. Who,
As long as he still gets the jersey that says FNG, I'm good.
Yeah, I agree. And,
I want to see that bill with Tom Brady and Gronkowski taking the rookies out for dinner.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I thought that we definitely saw some stuff there that we would get some excited about. So let's take a pen to reset here, everyone. This is Men in Stripes, brought to you by StripePipe.com, a fan-sided network. Just start your show. If you want to check it out each and every week, it's on iTunes. You can check us out on iTunes. It's really cool. If you just click subscribe there, anytime that we have a new show that's uploaded to the RSS feed, it will automatically download onto your iPhone, iPad, whatever device you have, etc. So these will continue to be freshly updated there for you each and every week. A lot of really, really good articles this week on the website as always. We have a really awesome team doing a lot of really cool stuff. I think the big talk this week is hey, what receivers should the Bengals target? I had the Travis Benjamin article. Dylan had the Roddy White article. So apparently that's a quick trend this week on the site.
That is a quick trend. Roddy White, of course, getting dropped by the Falcons, which I don't think it really too much of a shocker.
No.
Just with his production. I don't, however, Let me say this right now. I haven't. You can blame me. I haven't read Dylan's article. I'm sorry, Dylan. But I just don't see it. I don't think that his production in Atlanta proves that he can come here and be productive, especially as a secondary wide receiver. So I don't see him. Travis Benjamin, we've talked about that weekend a couple weeks now. Of course, talks have broken down between him and Cleveland. He's going to test free agency by the sound of it.
Can you blame him?
But no, I actually can't blame him. But again, another wide receiver too, that in a shallow wide receiver pool for free agency, another receiver that might just get paid way too much compared to what he's worth. And that's my fear with him. That's my fear with Marvin Jones. Obviously, somebody's going to pay wide receiver 2 money to Mohamed Sanu, and I think that's just way too much money for him at this point.
I agree.
So my fear is the Bengals are going to be starting with A.J. Green and possibly James Wright if you really want to bring him into the mix here, with him hopefully being healthy by the beginning of the season. Mario Alford, we've talked about not really being a top 3 wide receiver guy, at least in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Wide receiver 4 maybe, wide receiver 5 maybe. So it's really a A.J. Green, maybe James Wright, and then who? And so
Will Fuller.
You're going to bring that up until the Bengals draft him or the draft's over. I know that one. No, as I said, I'm a huge fan of Malcolm Mitchell. I think if he can stay healthy, and of course, we know health with wide receivers. We've seen it 2 years now. But Malcolm Mitchell is one of those guys that if you get him in the 4th round, or if you even get him, I'd even say late 3rd. He didn't really play his way up, but I still think he's a solid 3rd round pick, especially if he's strong in comparison to A.J. Green.
Dude, let's talk about this. Let's play scenario time, because this is what we do while we're waiting for the draft. With 7 weeks till the draft, who's counting? Because I'll be there. What if the Bengals go and get Will Fuller in the 1st round and Malcolm Mitchell drops to them with one of those 4th round picks? Are you stoked? I'm stoked.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, there are a few players that I would love to see the Bengals get. Obviously, I'm huge on Shaq Lawson. I think he's a great player. I think he is very versatile on the defense. So if he drops to the Bengals in the 1st, I'm foregoing wide receiver at least for 1 round.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Obviously, what happens in the free agent market will depend. Should they wait for round 2? Should they wait for round 3 or beyond? And I said, Malcolm Mitchell is a guy I'm high on. I think he had spots in which, if you watch his tape, especially his good tape in Georgia, honestly, I think the kid has a lot of talent, a lot of skill. If he is even brought up to half of what A.J. Green can do, you've stolen a pick in the 4th round. Or in the 3rd round. And you all of a sudden have a great value for him. Will Fuller, I think the kid's talented. I think he's fast. My issue is still his hands and a little bit size. I understand he blows the top off, but if he blows the top off and you're Andy Dalton, you're laying up to, you're basically laying one over the shoulder to him, and his hands are the question. If he's trying to catch with his body, you can't lay one into him. He's got to make the play across the middle where he's turned towards the ball. And that's where I think my issue is with him in the 1st round. Not saying he shouldn't be drafted in the 1st round. I'm just saying that's my issue with him in general, 1st round.
Well, see, I mean, that's fair. I think that's coachable, though. I certainly think hands are coachable.
To a point. But I think you also have to want to be helped. And that's the question. And I'm not questioning his character, believe me. But we just don't know. We just don't know, obviously, yet.
Right.
And that's still the unknown thing, is is can he be taught? Because obviously Sanu couldn't be.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Golden Tate had those same worries coming out of the draft, and he's had a pretty solid NFL career.
There's your other end.
Yeah, so it's I'm with you, man. I certainly am. But yeah, I think if that's the scenario that happens, I'd be totally happy with that. Let's talk about a few other things before we go to our big segment of every week. One thing I want to talk about here, and this article is it's waiting to be published. I wrote an article about the trade value of A.J. McCarron and what he could potentially bring to the table as far as draft picks, anything like that. And the only reason I brought that up was because if you saw the NFL news this week, you saw that someone paid Sam Bradford for 2 more years of football because someone thought that was a good idea.
Someone also thought bringing Chip Kelly to the NFL was a good idea. It happened to be the same person.
Yeah. And then someone else thought it'd be a really good idea to pay $20 million for 1 year of Kirk Cousins. And hey, before anyone talks bad, I actually do really like Kirk Cousins. And I think that he definitely has a spot as a starting quarterback in the NFL. But I don't know if I would, just put like a 7-year deal next to his name either. And then Nick Foles is a starting NFL quarterback for some reason. And then the Cleveland Browns have no idea who's going to be their quarterback. And then Tony Romo, we don't know what he's going to do next year. So I wrote a really good article, one, talking about the horribleness of the quarterback game these days and why we should be very fortunate we have Andy Dalton on our team. And 2, someone out there would buy for A.J. McCarron if the Bengals dangle that carrot in front of their faces. You just have to. I mean, you have to think he brings some value with this news that's coming out in the NFL this week.
You have to bring value. He does absolutely have to bring some value to the trade market. But the difference there is okay, great, get a trade for him, and I'm playing devil's advocate here.
That's fine.
Obviously, I get to edit your article tonight to get it put up tomorrow. So that's my goal. Because once tomorrow hits, then I'm basically going to be crying. I've already looked at my schedule. I've looked at my schedule. I'm going to be crying.
Time? Are you doing your 7-round mock draft?
No, it has to do with dealing with certain work things.
Oh, adult stuff. I got you.
Yeah, it has to do with adult stuff. But so devil's advocate here is okay. Great. You trade A.J. McCarron, you get a couple things maybe in return, whether it be a player, picks, whatever. Who's your backup? What if Andy Dalton gets hurt in 2016? Are you going to be able to trust your backup like you could with A.J. McCarron if he's still there?
Oh, depending on the backup. I mean, there's going to be some quality players out there. Like, no, don't go get Michael Vick by all means. Please, God, don't. But you got to think.
Tim Tebow?
I don't know. I thought Sam Bradford would have been a good backup.
Well, the Sam Bradford would be, but he's
terrible.
2 years with the Eagles.
Yeah.
So, and somehow, well, we'll see. There's talks of who do the Rams draft a quarterback?
Dude, why not go get Chase Daniel if that's the case? Like, what bad can you have with Chase Daniel coming into this team?
Well, have we figured out what Peyton Manning's doing yet?
No.
We still don't have a clue.
Do we care at this point?
Well, the only reason I ask that because if Peyton Manning comes back, does Denver re-sign him? If they do, what do you do with Brock Osweiler? Are you going to be paying him two quarterbacks starting money?
Yeah.
And so the question there is, do you let Brock Osweiler walk? In that case, he becomes another free agent quarterback that teams have to look at.
Yeah.
So that's the only reason I bring that up.
Dude, it's a fair point, and I understand. But I think also, I mean, I didn't really think about that. You have me stumped for once. Son of a gun. I'm speechless. Mark it down, people. This actually happened. It's fair. It is, man. Just to have that point. But you got to think, like, one, you can, with, the state of the quarterback game now, it's so bad. So bad. And people that complain about Andy Dalton, it's like, do you see who else is playing quarterback out there right now? 2, Would you take Nick Foles as your backup quarterback, which I think I would, but he's still going to want to be a starter for some reason, and someone will pay him starter money. 3, please God, never, ever, 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 ever think about bringing Colin Kaepernick to this team. Never, ever, 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 ever. Don't do that. Would you take RG3 in Cincinnati as your backup?
No.
Really?
No.
I would.
Again, we're here talking about guys we could trust. I can't trust RG3 as far as he can, as far as he can throw the ball now, which isn't pretty far, because he doesn't trust his leg at all.
Okay.
He still doesn't.
I certainly get it, but think about it. If you're the backup quarterback for the Cincinnati Bengals and Andy Dalton gets hurt, you have a lot of really good security blankets to throw to.
That's if you don't throw 20 yards in front of him, or if you don't underthrow it consistently, and that's what RG3's been getting in trouble for. That's why he was benched last season, is because he kept underthrowing the ball, because he kept throwing off the back foot, and I don't trust that worth a lick. I
am now stumped in backup quarterbacks, man. I don't know. Is Chad Henne still in the league?
Well, that's why I brought up Tim Tebow.
He's got a one-way ticket to Canada right now.
Well, here you go. Have AJ call up his brother-in-law, AJ Hawk. I'm sure Brady Quinn would love a second chance. Dude,
I love BQ. That's my boy. But
well, again, as I said, I mean, AJ Hawk has him on speed dial, right?
I hope so.
If he doesn't, we know his wife does.
Yeah. Ooh, solid there. Okay. Continue scenario, because I think this show is just scenario night.
It seems like it, but then again, we're before free agency, before draft, so it's going to be scenario.
Yeah. Cincinnati Bengals somehow, so the LA Rams say, hey guys, we'll give you a second and a fifth for AJ McCarron. You think that's smart? Okay, I'll take it. My 5th round draft pick a couple years ago. Give him an opportunity. He's going to have Todd Gurley in the backfield. He might be able to go there and succeed because they have a decent offensive line. Okay, yeah, that's fair. Why not? That's a decent trade. Do the Bengals go and get a mid-round quarterback at that point? Do you go and get, what's his face from Arkansas? Wow, this is the worst time ever to brain fart. Do you get the other kid from Alabama? Do you get Philip Coker?
You know who I get, and this is if he lasts this long. I would love to see him last this long, and there's been questions on whether or not he will. But possibly even Connor Cook.
Yeah, I think that would be the perfect situation for that. Because Connor Cook is the big question mark. And
yep.
It's so funny. I had this talk on my show last night, my other show, and we had this discussion of have you noticed when people bring up Connor Cook, it's always well, look how many games he won at Michigan State. Did he throw for 50 yards when they beat Ohio State?
I think it was more than that, but you're on to something there, yes.
Yeah, quarterback wins is the dumbest stat ever. It's dumber than pitcher wins and pitcher saves in baseball. I hate it so much. Again,
and my point to Connor Cook is his is more accuracy, which we talked about for sure, and the fear of the difference with accuracy, and accuracy is teachable. And we saw that with AJ McCarron. AJ McCarron was a kid who had accuracy issues. He had an arm to him, and we knew that. And so Connor Cook almost kind of reminds me, granted without the full national championship pedigree,
right.
To be full disclosure there, he almost kind of reminds me of what the Bengals got into 2 years ago with AJ McCarron. And so, for me, I think Connor Cook, if they could get him, if they trade away AJ McCarron.
This is a big if, everyone. We're not saying this is going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, that would be one of those things that I think would be a best-case scenario. Because you pick up the extra second pick, which allows you to get a decent draft, which, of course, we also know Andy Dalton himself is done, I believe, guaranteed money after this year.
Yeah, it's all, yeah.
I think it's all base salary at that point, which if they cut him, then they don't burn any salary cap. So, let's say he turns around and he has the worst year in the world, the Bengals decide, you know what, we're done. They get somebody like Connor Cook, then, all of a sudden now we're looking at, again, a teachable backup who could possibly be a starter in the NFL.
Here's the thing about that. I love the idea of Connor Cook backing up Andy Dalton. I love the idea of having him there because he could be a poor man's Kirk Cousins, a guy you bring in, just does some great things. You know how this goes. You are a Bengals fan. You watch the team every week like I do. You're in Pittsburgh, so you don't really hear the chatter like I do at like bars and places like that. The first game that Andy Dalton has where he throws like an interception, man, Connor Cook, he won games in college. He's a winner. Put him on the field.
Oh, no, all I had to do was walk into the place that Sean works at, and I would have heard it from Sean. By the way, Sean, one of our other writers, also lives in Pittsburgh. If you want to know, so if you want to hit him up on Facebook or Twitter, if you want a good Bengals conversation, find out where he works and go have a good Bengals conversation with Sean if you're in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because my bosses would kill me for that much time with somebody talking about the Bengals.
Probably.
That's his job.
All right, man. We only got a few minutes left. We got 5 topics. Are you ready?
Oh, I'm ready.
All right, everyone. It's time for the annual Men in Stripes, weekly segment we do on Men in Stripes called Picking Up or Putting Down, where I come up with 5 juicy discussions, and Matthew and I give our thoughts on if we're picking up and think it's a good idea, or if we're putting down because we think it's a bad idea. So let's get right into it. We've talked about it all, for a solid 10, 15 minutes on the episode today. We've mentioned a bunch of names we can potentially link to this position. We think that's a very strong possibility in free agency. With the 24th pick in the 2016 NFL Draft, the Cincinnati Bengals will select a wide receiver, picking up or putting down.
At this point, I'm picking up. Picking up for the reason of we don't know what's happening in the draft or in the free agency. If the Bengals lose both wide receivers, I think it's almost in a way forcing their hand to go. But at the same time, I wouldn't be shocked, especially if somebody extremely valuable falls, if they don't. But at this point, I think they have to look wide receiver. I think it's the obvious pick.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm picking up. Do I have to say it one more time?
Will Fuller.
Yeah. Do it. Picking up. Will Fuller, round 1, Cincinnati Bengals next year. I'll be in line for the jersey. All right. So, on to more serious points there, because we know I'm going to talk about Will Fuller being a Bengal until either A, it happens, or B, the draft is over. A.J. Hawk, year 2 in the system. He benefits. He's one of the top 5 tacklers on the team next year. Are you picking up or putting down?
Putting down.
Me too.
I'm big on him. I like him. I think he improves. I think he gets better. I still think that, you have what? Michael Johnson, you have Geno Atkins, you have Carlos Dunlap. You have guys like that. Well, you have Vontaze Burfict. The 3 games isn't going to mean crap for his tackles.
No.
So you have him. You have Ray Maluga, who was it Maluga or was it Vincent Ray? I may be getting my Ray switched. Who had 90-some tackles this season.
Vinny.
Was it Vinny?
My cousin Vinny Ray.
Yeah. So you also have Vinny Ray. I knew I was getting the Ray switch when I thought about it, but you have Vinny Ray, and then you also have to take into account that whoever they have in the secondary is also going to see tackles as well, and you're going to see the rotation of the line. So at the end of the day, you're talking about he's going to have to easily be in the 50 to 60 tackle range just to break the potential top 5.
Yeah.
And I see him getting more than his, I think, 24 tackles he had last season. I see him somewhere between 30 and 40, if not just breaching the 40 range. I see him maybe picking up a couple sacks compared to the one he had last year. I see him being more of a more utilized in this defense with Vontez being out for games. But at the same time, he's got a long way to go before you can sit there and say he's a top 5 tackler.
I'm putting down 1. I'll be honest, I'm not 100% sure he makes the team out of training camp.
Okay.
2, we'll have to remember that there's a possibility we'll see Emmanuel Lemur playing for this team next year. He's been rotating in and out with that position with. 3, we have openly discussed the possibility of James Laurinaitis being here, and I think that's a match made in heaven if it happens. So I think that's a very, very, very uphill battle for him. I would love to see A.J. Hawk go out there and be a huge part of this defense. I just don't think that's going to be the case. So, next one here. Let's stay on the defensive side of the ball here. Another big discussion besides wide receiver is safety. So, Matthew, next season, Sean Williams will be a starting safety for the Cincinnati Bengals. Picking up or putting down?
Picking up. I think they signed George Iloka. I think Reggie Nelson becomes too expensive for them. Love to see both of them back. I just think you have to put your money elsewhere with this team, and so I think they get one. As I said, I would love to see them bring George Iloka being the future aspect back, which the money that they probably are going to have to pay him to keep him away from, I think, what is it, Detroit that was looking at him.
Mike Zimmer really wants him?
Mike Zimmer really wants him in Minnesota. I think you're going to have to pay him a premium, and so you're going to have to let Reggie Nelson go. So I'm picking up that he's a starting safety.
I am too, strictly because 1, he has earned it. He has been when his number's been called, he has been fantastic for this defense. He totally got screwed in the playoff game because that's a total clean hit that he got penalized for.
Yeah.
And I think that he certainly deserves that, and I think that he's too good to not have on the field as much as possible. So I'm definitely picking up there. 2 more to go here before we close out this week's edition. Matthew, Tyler Kroft this last season, when Tyler F was out from injury, we saw this kid develop. We saw him really become. We saw what he could potentially bring to this team in the future as a potential number 2 tight end to Tyler Eifert and being another weapon for this team. So, Matthew, do you see the possibility? Are you picking up or putting down next year Tyler Kroft scoring 4 touchdowns for Andy Dalton?
We may have our first disagreement, although I don't know what you're going to answer. I'm putting it down, and one of the big reasons I'm putting it down is because he played well with A.J. McCarron. He saw A.J. McCarron week in, week out at practice. So they had umpteenth amount of days to work, umpteenth amount of weeks to work on their connection. And so for him to come out year 1 with Andy Dalton and do that, I think is a lot to ask for him. Not to say that he won't be a vital part to this team in some way. However, I just don't think he's at that stage yet with Andy Dalton.
I'm so torn on this, man, because I like what he brings to the table. I like him being that backup tight end that you can go and think will get like 25, 30 catches, maybe about 400 yards, and put a couple touchdowns in and put a couple plays in the end zone. I think he certainly has potential to be a 5-6 touchdown guy. But I think I'm with you. The first year of Dalton, we shouldn't be agreeing on everything this week. This isn't weird. This is weird.
We agree on like 2 things in the past, like 20 questions.
I know.
And this week we're all of a sudden agreeing on everything.
We are. I like I said, I like him a lot, and I think he brings some definitely good things to the table. I think he's a guy that can end up taking some pressure off Eifert and taking some double teams off Green. But the first year of that being a full-time number 2 tight end, where he's going to see a lot of reps, it's going to be a little difficult. So I will say that I'll predict his stat line to be 31 catches, let's say 315 yards and 3 touchdowns, so just short.
Okay.
And in the last one of this week's episode of Picking Up or Putting Down, Matthew Wilson, our great co-editor of Stripe Pipe, who does a lot of wonderful things, will be spending his free time in the next couple weekends watching every episode of Fuller House on Netflix.
Not on Netflix. I'll be watching pirated ones that are posted to YouTube.
So he's picking up in a roundabout way.
I don't subscribe to Netflix, so sorry, I'm not a walking endorsement, Netflix. If you want to make it free, we could talk. But no, I saw some decent reviews on it. I actually haven't watched the first episode. I've stuck with having a daughter. I've stuck with Girl Meets World, so I did the Boy Meets World sequel.
Bro, the first episode is so cringeworthy. Oh, it hurts so bad.
I'm not totally sure I want to ask why. I'll have to watch it.
So bad. Yeah.
I was going to say, I just have to watch it and cry because it was terrible or because it was, heart-jerking, whichever one happened.
Yeah, exactly. So there you have it for this week's edition of Men in Stripes, brought to you by StripeHike.com. Like we said, please be sure to subscribe to our show on iTunes. Also be sure to check out our websites. We're continuing to break records in each and every week in views. So thank you so much for your help in participating and showing us some love at Stripe Hype as we continue to work hard and show you guys the love that we have for this team. We're going to keep going onward and upward, so please keep following us along. We're really excited about this project and where it's going. Everyone, enjoy your week. We're almost there. OTAs are right around the corner. The draft's right around the corner, and we're going to cover it. Don't forget, next week free agency starts, so it's about to be fun on Men in Stripes.
Woohoo!
All right, everyone. So everyone enjoy the